I'm the CEO of Vala Health. We are doing this group of videos over the next 8 weeks, really, because we thought it'd be fun to speak to some interesting people about some interesting stories about things that are happening during COVID, swap some insight, have a chinwag, and generally just kind of bring a little bit of optimism into people's homes because it can get quite gloomy. We're all in lockdown. Somebody told me today, one of my children, in fact, said that I was starting to look like Beetlejuice, which I'll take as a compliment, but that was interesting. But I think generally the world is in a very strange place. So Vala is an online telemedicine platform. For anybody who doesn't know, we're really trying to pioneer and be the very best integrated care company in the UK at the moment. I'm really excited about everything that's happening with the business. Obviously, we've been incredibly busy, and we're the right service for the right time right now. Go and check us out. But we're not here to talk about Vala today. We're here to talk about my three amazing guests. One of them actually works with Vala, so that's even more interesting. We've got Ian and Ruth from Babble Talks, and I know a little bit about Babble Talks, so I've been and spoke to them, spoke for them a few times, but I'll let them describe what that's all about. And we've got Claire, who's a physician associate GP for Vala and various other services. She's got some fascinating stories, and I'm going to ask her some questions from the front line, as it were, as well. So, Ian and Ruth, even you're in the same house and yet on different screens. I imagine sums up most partnerships at the moment in the UK. Can you just give the listeners, the audience, a little bit of an overview of you guys and of the amazing Babble Talks?
Go on, Ruth. You take it.
Sure. So Babble Talks is a daytime event where expert guest speakers give talks, and it was originally started, the idea behind it is that the audience is parents with their babies under 1 year old, and the talks have nothing at all to do with parenting. So it's intended to be a complete diversion and a distraction from what can be kind of quite an overwhelming and intense time where you're focused on trying to figure out how to look after a new baby, and actually doing something that allows you to connect with your identity as a person and an adult can be really valuable.
As a parent that's been there twice, we did not have Babble, and I wish we'd had it, because the first 6 months are not only terrifying, but you kind of lose your identity a little bit, don't you? Which is one of the things I loved about Babble when you guys approached me to do one of the talks.
Yeah, and that's where we started, because I was sort of saying to Ian, I feel like I'm not doing any of the things, like I'm not having the conversations that I used to have, and I don't know what to do with myself. It feels really weird. And so then Ian was like, well, obviously this is what we need to do, and so then we did it.
Yeah, it's a good team. Good team. I'm the ideas person. Ruth is the driving force.
And what in the first couple of times you tried it, can I give me some interesting stories about the first couple of months, because those are always the fun ones in startups as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously, like everything that we were doing at the beginning was with Julian in tow. So like literally we were switching him between like being in the sling on me or Ian, everything. I did a radio interview where I took Julian along. He was like 4 or 5 months old at the time, and so I basically breastfed him through the entire interview so that he wouldn't make a noise whilst I was speaking on camera. So it was really useful.
Maybe different noises, but yeah, that's a. Could I? Sorry to interrupt you, but I do have to ask, because this kind of thing baffles me as well, and I'm sure Claire deals with parents all the time. Stories like that, do you still, to interviewers and stuff, still find it uncomfortable?
I don't know. I think a lot of it is about, like, if you don't let it be weird, then it cannot be weird, but it's not that easy. I'm not saying that if people find it difficult, then that isn't a valid response. But I think that my approach to things, and I think that that's kind of why we've ended up doing Babble Talks, is if I want to do something, then I'll kind of just do it. Do you think that's true, Ian?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if that wasn't your attitude, then we probably wouldn't have sort of come this far. I think it's, that particular interviewer, he's an awesome guy, and he's not the kind of person that would, think something like that is strange. So I think he was a good interviewer for that particular moment.
Yeah, and also I think in a way being on radio is actually a very intimate kind of experience. It's not like being in front of an entire audience in like in a stadium or something like that. Is you're in a room with like one other person. So.
Well, I think one of the things that I loved about Babble when I did the first one, because I've done 2 talks for you now, and it is quite jarring, even for a dad, right? It is quite jarring. Because you're in an environment where there are kind of no rules, and and you're inviting professionals to come and talk about professional things, like grown-up things, in a room of toddlers, babies, like noise and poo, and it was brilliant. Like it was totally kind of stigma-free, and just you go like, this is actually an incredibly liberating experience. So beyond it being a brilliant idea for parents, to kind of rescue their brains a bit, it's also I just think it's really important that kids are brought into environments where traditionally we go like, that's the adult space, that's the kid space, or that's the kid space and that's the adult space. It's like, nah, like fold it all into one.
Yeah, I think it took a few months, because initially we were doing 1 talk a month.
Yeah.
And I think it took a little while for us to kind of to feel really confident about saying to speakers, you're going to love this, because the first speaker we had, she was absolutely incredible. And she just took the bull by the horns and really enjoyed it. And then it obviously, when we were initially booking other speakers and you're trying to explain the concept to people, we didn't quite know in the beginning how it was going to go ourselves. We were kind of fulfilling a need that we had, where we wanted to create something for intellectual stimulation, but we didn't quite know how the audience was going to be, how the speakers would feel, or anything. We just sort of jumped in and did it. And actually, a few talks in, we thought, oh, okay, actually, speakers really enjoy this. The audience are really enjoying the kind of liberation of freedom, and just, feeling like, yeah, anything goes and it's absolutely fine. And so actually it took us a couple of events, but our confidence grew relatively quickly, just based on the speaker's reaction and the audience reaction, and the fact that everybody's just in it together.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you found, Pete, did you find that you can actually sort of just phase out the sound? It's kind of, you say to people, oh, it's going to be really noisy, there's going to be babies crying and making noise, people moving around, but you don't notice.
I've got 2 kids. I'm used to phasing out. For someone without kids, it's a good learning curve. But you do. You kind of get used to it, and also it's quite a lot of fun. It takes all the tension out of it. I think speakers are quite nervous generally. I've done talks. I've done the biggest one I did last year was about 1,200 people in Liverpool, and you're kind of anonymous. Do you know what I mean? And it's a room full of people, and they pay to come and see you, and it's it's a fascinating day and all that kind of stuff. But I think when it's a load of kids and parents, and there's a bit more urgency in the room and a bit of a need in the room, then kind of takes some of the tension out of it. I'm going to ask you some questions later about some of the speakers, but Claire's been doing. She's one of our amazing doctors, GPs, and Claire, I always love reading the feedback about your sessions from the patients. It's always glowing.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard it.
It's good. Can you? Do you want to just give people a bit of a background about what you do, how you've got here, your type of medicine? Because again, I find the doctors that work with Vala really fascinating. So give us a bit of Claire.
So I trained at St George's University, did the Physician Associate programme there. I was actually the first class of London to do that programme. And actually, Shalane was one of my lecturers and teachers at the uni. Following on from that, I went into GP and urgent care, where I re-met Shalane as a colleague, actually, which was amazing because I tell you what, in exams, she's pretty scary.
Shalane is one of the founders of Vala. So she's an amazing lady. She's one of the founders. She's American, and she's been doing telemedicine, so screen-based like Medicare for a long time, where it was really pioneered. So a lot of our physician associates have met Shalane because she used to teach you, which I just find brilliant now that you're working with us, student and teacher side by side again.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, we worked in the urgent care centre together. And I remember Shalane telling me about Vala and the plans. And I thought it was an amazing idea. And I said, make sure you always keep me in mind when it sort of comes through. So then going forward, I then went into dermatology for a few years. Did my dermatology dermoscopy course and then fell back into general practice with my new knowledge of derm. And I'm now working not so much in the urgent care setting, but properly in GP land. And that's where I've settled.
You've probably had a fairly busy year, I should imagine, haven't you?
Very busy.
It's do you think this year more than any other year? Let's not go to the COVID stuff like straight away. It's pretty obvious, but it does feel a little bit like this is a year that people have started to get more conscious of their health, and they're starting to kind of wake up a little bit and realize that they need to do a little bit more. And there are other windows literally that they can sort of access healthcare through and things like that. Have you noticed a bit of a shift this year? Is 2020 a year where people were having kind of more interest in their health and their healthcare?
Absolutely. So there's definitely been a shift in people's opinions and approach to and attitudes to healthcare. Certainly when I was training, I spent a lot of time telling people off about their smoking and their drinking and their weights and like the eye rolls and things. But in the last couple of years, actually, the people I'm coming across, they do want to take more control of their health. They're more well informed. Certainly, even the younger generations, they're all teetotals. People are looking to vegan diets, they're monitoring their cholesterol, and they've got access to all of these things now. And actually, because we're in a more digitalized age, they're wanting to do even their GP appointments online, which is why I think Vala has come in at the right sort of point in time, because even prescriptions have gone to electronic to make things easier for people.
Yeah, we've definitely hit the convenience society moment where
100%.
Like the Uberification of everything is now like a thing, and they want it on demand and they want it yesterday. And there's certainly a generation. I've been building techie things for 25 years, and there was certainly a tipping point in about 2009, 2008, like a year after the iPhone, where everybody was just demanding like now, like I want it yesterday, and I want you to speak to me in a voice that I want to be spoken to in. And health, and it was banking first. Banking was really kind of like completely crucified after the crash and then transformed. And then, I think medicine might this year have just had its 2008 banking crash moment where people were saying, like, this is going to change. We want it on demand and we want it now. So, it's a good time to be in healthcare, but you're frontlining it, which is amazing. And just, I've got some really interesting thoughts for you as well, or some interesting questions. So we've got basically two parents like right next to you on the screen. Are you worried about parenting during lockdown? Like, are you worried? Is there anything that strikes you that parents need to be like super aware of, either about themselves or their kids during kind of the lockdown time that we're in right now?
In terms of what we would as normal medical things, I think parents have got the right idea already. People are staying safe, looking after their kids in terms of teach them hygiene and all that things. But I think what parents do need to be really aware of, especially if they've not been furloughed, if they're working from home, and I've come across it quite a lot actually, is the mental health impact.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of people are having to still do full-time jobs at home. And it might be that their partner is going out still to their work and they're left to do a 9 to 5 full-time job with a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Which is really having an effect on them. I'm talking to parents that are having trouble just feeling really overwhelmed. So I think the big thing for parents in lockdown is to make sure you have a strategy to make sure that you've accounted for your own health and well-being, even if it's, there on a nap, you've got 10 minutes just to sit and meditate, or to go on to, say, YouTube and do a yoga, sesh or anything, because I'm seeing a lot of parents just burning out at home.
Yeah. And we're only 5 weeks in as well.
Yes.
Go on then, Ruth and Ian. What's your strategy? How are you coping?
It's quite interesting actually, because we were sort of already in the zone because our little one is 2.5, and I'm full-time dad. So we kind of were in a routine already, lucky for us, where Ruth is working full-time and I'm at home with Julian and doing bits and pieces in the evening. So we're really, really lucky, and we realise how lucky we are that we were sort of prepped for this situation. We were kind of already in a good position for it. So in some ways, it's been quite manageable.
Ian's being very positive about his own personal experience, because basically Babble Talks obviously sort of started as a side hustle for us, and has been taking up more of Ian's time as it's built, and we'd sort of just got to the point where he was actually able to spend kind of concentrated amount of time on it and daytime time on it, and now everything that we've kind of got to, we've now had to roll back, and we've gone back to where we were a couple of years ago, where we were sort of doing it in the evenings and that kind of thing. So so it's not been kind of like completely straightforward, but as Ian says, he already was very geared up for kind of doing full-time toddler entertainment.
Yeah.
And
we often have conversations about how hard it would be if we were both trying to work simultaneously. And I imagine it's incredibly tough. We are lucky to have that split where I essentially work in the evenings. Ruth also works every evening as well on Babble Talks as well as the day job. But I can really imagine how for everybody's obviously in very different circumstances. I imagine, Claire, the people that you're hearing from, the circumstances must just vary so hugely from one person to the next.
Massively. You've got some people that it's their partner that's the key worker and having to go out, and they're stuck with their full-time job at home. Or there are couples where usually it would be one of the mothers of the parents that would usually pitch in, but they are possibly in an at-risk group and then shielding at home, and with social distancing, you can't ask, your best friend to take the kids if she's a, stay-at-home mum. So many different scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely.
We, sorry to interrupt you. So me and my wife are full-time. I'm trying to, run Vala. She's a lawyer, human rights lawyer. And today I found myself, homeschooling and taking phone calls from investors and putting out fires and completely ruining my 7-year-old daughter's education simultaneously. And you go, and honestly, the pressure levels, and I'm a pretty stern, solid fella, and I am imagining people all over the country trying to do jobs, parenting, homeschooling, and managing other kids and things like that. It's just, honestly, I have so much respect for parents at the moment. Key workers, doctors, nurses, and parents. are right up there in my OBE list, because it's
because I think also, you know, the Ruth works in an industry where there tends to be a little bit of flexibility. It's a really nice industry to work in, and I really feel for people that are maybe in situations where their work is very inflexible and there are way more demands. I mean, we feel very lucky, and I think we hopefully we will keep in that.
But also, I think that Pete, you kind of sort of like touched on something which is really key, which is that a lot of it is like your own expectations of yourself as a parent. You know, like your child is so important to you, and so you're really, really kind of trying to do everything that you absolutely can to kind of give them all of the opportunities. You know, that's true in any circumstances, and now we're in this kind of like difficult time. And so I think that it's kind of, as Claire was saying, kind of finding strategies to give yourself a bit of a break so that you're not putting all of that weight on your own shoulders of like how you're going to kind of ensure that they're getting everything that they need for the future.
Yeah, it becomes really difficult to find that time for you to adult, like to just be normal when we're not even leaving the house, other than to take a dog for a walk, or you know, having the office and things like that is a good way of getting away from everything. So Claire, what's just what do you think the long-term impact of all this isolation is going to be on people?
Well, certainly I think on the downside, I think the mental health aspects, but I think on an upside, people are actually realizing how great we had it before. And being grateful for, you know, all the things that we're missing at the moment. I think from a medical point of view, I think this is actually, there are some upsides to it as well going forward. Realizing we can do so much at a distance more conveniently for patients. It's been our own little test. This is the situation that everybody was too scared to go into before. And now it's been forced upon us. I think, you know, it's going to move healthcare forward, which is a good thing. I think it's important to look at the good things as well as the obviously bad things.
I also think it's been a really interesting time, and again, it frustrates me to a certain extent that it's, you know, it's taken this for people to appreciate healthcare workers probably as much as they do right now, which, you know, in some ways is a real shame, because I've always had nothing but respect for healthcare workers, hence, you know, running a company like Vala. But, you know, moving forward, I think there's going to be so much more appreciation for things that we took for granted: a public health system and good private healthcare cover if you need it. But, you know, I think it's been a really positive thing for the healthcare market, if you like, because people are starting to go, you know, isn't this brilliant? I'd like to go and clap every Thursday outside, not just during lockdown. Do you know what I mean? Like those kind of things. And the other question I've got for you, Claire, I can't not ask. You know what I'm going to ask?
About my little friend.
About your little friend. I'm going to ask Ruth and Ian about some of their little friends. But you've had some pretty fun gigs over the last few months, Claire. Do you want to just? I know you're allowed. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your superstar patient and how that came about?
So Captain Tom Moore, my superstar. So I've been looking after him in the surgery with my nurse over the last couple of years. Actually, we've always thought him the superstar even before he found his huge fame. He's the most wonderful gentleman. Honestly, he, like, the receptionists know when he's here. You can see because they're all sort of at the window trying to say hello. He always comes with a smile on his face. He makes a point of saying hello to everybody, and he'll quite often bring a chocolate orange because he knows that sometimes we don't get lunch, and he's like, I know this will keep you going. And so I got to see him more often over the last probably 9 months or so. So he had taken a fall, and he was having a wound dressed with one of our nurses, and she noticed a new lesion on his head. And because my special interest is skin and dermatology, she called me down to have a little look, and it turned out, well, I thought it was suspicious, and referred him in. And luckily he's had that treated, excised. So now he's just back coming in on a weekly basis for his dressings and things. And I mean, I think it's probably all healed up now, but selfishly, I kind of want to keep bringing him back. He's so lovely to see. He's always smiling. He's always so interested in how you are. And just, I think him and my nurse, they taught Formula One together. They had big talks about when she got married. He took a big interest in that, and he never complains, no matter how much we bring him back in. He really is just like the example of how we should be as humans. Like,
yeah, no, amen to that. And he's he just did a casual 12 million quid charity as well.
Yeah.
So,
he really wanted to raise £1,000 initially, and we always used to joke actually that he'd end up doing a marathon. Because he's actually quite quick. He's very mobile. And my nurse would always be like, slow down, Tom, it's fine, you're so quick, you do a marathon one day. And I can't imagine what his actual lappage would equate to, but it might really be a marathon at this point.
What an amazing guy. And I also think there's, out of all of this lockdown and out of all these, strange moments in time, there are going to be some amazing stories, and he's definitely one of them. So, Ruth, I follow Babble, and tune in now, and we can talk about your new model because of lockdown. I tune into your speakers as much as I can. You've had some brilliant speakers. What's been your highlights, apart from me?
Well, you are of course in there, Pete. Of course. One of my favourites has been Professor Chris Jackson, who is a geologist, and he made a program called Into the Inferno. So he went into a volcano, and it was with the BBC. And
it might actually be available on iPlayer right now. I know that they did re-screen it. It's called Expedition Volcano.
Ooh, okay, amazing. Expedition Volcano. And he is just so full of energy and passion for his work. It's one of the great things about doing this job has been seeing the level of commitment and passion that people have about their professions. It's just so inspiring. And Chris Jackson was one of these people that just beams, he just has an aura of energy and positivity about him, and he's just incredible. So he came to speak at the East Dulwich Tavern. That's the right name, isn't it, of the venue, Ruth? Yeah, East Dulwich Tavern. And so it's the upstairs pub room, and he just basically appealed to every single person in the room because of his positivity. He was just absolutely wonderful. And the footage from being in the volcano and the scenery around, he was really amazing at combining his stories with the visual, with his incredible landscapes. And it was pretty much as perfect a talk as you could get, really, with an incredible personality. So he's well up there for me.
I think that
decide that walking into volcanoes is going to be their career. That's what I want to know. I know what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go to a volcano. He's a geologist, but that's quite bizarre, isn't it? What guy?
Yeah, I think some people just love it, don't they? They just really. I can imagine he would have seen himself in that scenario. You just tell, the amount of energy he had. He seemed like one of these people that would really go for those kind of opportunities. And I think, the cameras loved him, and he's been put on the TV for a good reason. He really suits it. Would you agree, Ruth?
I think that Chris and other speakers that we've had just kind of, if we're thinking about kind of how the world is now in sort of 2020, I think we're in a real golden age of like people who can make subjects like accessible and exciting. And I think that that's one of the really cool things about what we found with Babble Talks, is that there's so many people who are able to really bring their subjects to life. And I feel kind of so lucky that we're able to connect with all of these people who do amazing work, like going into volcanoes. The one that springs to mind for me is someone who we had, who's an astrophysicist, astronomer, called Jen Gupta, who does research. I'm probably going to explain it really badly, but it's to do with light prisms and how you can see stuff in space. And so she brought these glasses to the talk, so everyone put on these kind of like special glasses so that they could see things in a particular way. So, it's really fun. It's kind of, you can have opportunities to do really fun stuff. It's not at all dry. It's not at all like the kind of concept that you might have of being in a lecture or at school, so I think that's great, and lots of inspiring people.
Well, I also love the fact that, you've brought, like, you haven't, and I mean this like in sincere, like in the most sincere way, like you haven't dumbed it down. And I think a lot of people will probably thinking, a talks for new parents, it's going to be, toddler hour. It's like, no, you're bringing in high-end academics and then idiots like me occasionally, but just bringing the level down a bit. But and I even said to you, I remember when we, I was saying, well, I'm going to talk about this. Even the talk that I did was pretty heavy, because that's, there's AI and data and death and disability. I mean, there's a lot of quite deep topics that we covered about my friend, and but I love the quality level of the Babble Talks. I think is just like absolutely supreme.
Thank you.
I genuinely applaud you for that, because I think a lot of people sort of patronize their audience with these conference formats and things, and you don't do that. It's great.
So hungry for it. Like everyone's, you've got really smart people in the room who are just asking for something that they can really get their teeth into. And we actually, initially, the length of the talk was shorter. And people were like, no, we want more. We want it to be more in depth. So that's actually been something that it's been really cool to be able to sort of take on board and do.
Yeah, definitely. And also
Claire, go on. Do like life with Tom and dermatology.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
You can carry on curating these things. I'm not good at that stuff. But it is, who was the other one? I saw it recently. There was the artist, wasn't there?
Well, that was today. Yeah. Stephen Barrett from the National Gallery. And his whole talk, and this is really cool because we've never done one like this before, focused on the masterpiece that's at the National Gallery, which is Bathers at Asnières by Georges Seurat. And he is just incredible, the amount of knowledge that he has. And because he does it as his job, he does public engagement, and he just lives and breathes the art, and it's just wonderful to have him and do something completely different. We have people coming forward wanting to bring these interesting subjects to parents. I think we just want more and more and more people to come forward really with their interesting subjects. He was interesting because he actually pre-recorded his whole talk, and we showed the pre-record rather than doing absolutely live today. So today was new territory for us, which was really interesting. Be like what you guys are kind of going through with Vala, and what you were saying, Claire, about a new age, the kind of that we're in now. We're kind of having to learn on our feet really, really, really quickly, and it's good. It feels like we finally caught up with other people who are doing, technical advanced stuff too.
Well, we're sort of innovating at the speed of culture at the moment. That's basically what's happening, and I think it's quite exciting in that sense. Claire, what do you think? from the point of view of parents and their well-being and mental health and stuff like that, you know, that's a bit of a weird question, sorry, to ask a clinician, but do you think this kind of content and this kind of experience for parents has like a therapeutic benefit, like an actual sort of well-being benefit in terms of stimulation and kind of keeping the neurons firing and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. I think these Babble Talks are entirely what people need at the moment, whether you're a parent or whether you're just someone that might be isolating alone, actually. Some people, depending on how they're programmed, might not at the moment be having the mental energy to be able to think, oh, what do I want to watch? When really you're coming with all these people that you've pre-selected who are, you know, like you say, amazing at their own topics. They're all super interesting. So whether you're escaping lockdown, whether you're a clinician like me trying to get away from medicine, you know, I always joke that I like to watch completely inane comedy outside of what I do because it's the complete polar opposite. I'm serious all day and making big decisions, and then I want to do something completely different. So maybe I could learn to do something a bit more intellectual with the Babble Talks. But yeah, it's the escapism from what you're doing that your brain needs, and it's in lockdown it's so important. I spent a lot of time trying to get my boyfriend away from his screen for 10 minutes. Because otherwise the effects there'll be a huge effect on everybody to be in this intense environment for this long.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because I mean, even now, I mean, the irony of talking to you three brilliant people through a piece of glass, that's kind of our life, isn't it, at the moment? Everything is Zoom and phone and chat, and even when we go around and visit the in-laws who kind of live that way to see if they're all right, we're talking to them through the window, you know, but we're not going near them with the grandkids and things like that. And you think, well, like life through glass is the way that the world it feels at the moment. It's like the language of social distance I despise. I just think it's you know, like a really horrific term in terms of distancing between people. So I think you're right. I think it's really important that people have you know, an escape and something to do that's not their normal.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that with the talks that you're getting that it's not like a documentary where it kind of feels like you're in a lecture. Even if you've logged on to the Babble Talks, it's that interpersonal connection that someone's presenting to you. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also kind of, you know, make sure that people are involved as well. So it's not a one-way conversation, you know, as Pete has experienced. We make sure that the audience get involved as well. So people have their say, you know, their voices are heard, you know, people get to ask questions to the speaker, and we have an interactive game as well, which is just a kind of true or false type game, but it's
what's it called?
It's true or poo.
That's right. There you go.
Yes, it's kind of pretty much the only baby sort of focused element that we have. But the thing is, you know, through that, in a kind of very informal, relaxed way, people get to think, okay, do I think this is true or false? And even though it's you know, it's not asking a huge amount of people, it's a way of engaging on multiple levels. And so I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's a kind of multi-layered kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can put your questions to the speaker, so you actually can, you know, as you would in a live event, you can actually get directly their insight into something that you're particularly thinking about. But I do just want to say as well that they are completely, you know, open to everyone. It's not at all that, you know, and it's not at all just for parents. And now, because circumstances have changed for people so much, perhaps, you know, it is more likely that either they'll be able to watch live in the daytime, or they've got time when they would want to engage with it. Even when we're doing them in the venues, they've never been exclusive. It's just that it's a kind of a flip that, you know, like you don't have to ask permission to take your baby. You know that like most people are going to have babies, but that if you're happy to go to an event without a baby where there's going to be loads of noise, then, you know, like everyone is welcome. There's no sense of sort of exclusivity about what we're doing. So
my mother-in-law was at the one in East Dulwich that I did, you know, and I saw her in the venue. Oh, hi Pat, how are you doing? What are you here? Oh, I've seen this thing about Babble Talks. There's a talk today about AI, and I thought I'd come and listen to it. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That wasn't awkward. So you're getting the other end of the spectrum as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's really important. Is that it's this kind of, and funnily enough, when I was thinking about my mother-in-law being there, again, the babies and the kids and the, you know, the noise and stuff, it doesn't bother them because they've done it and they know it, and it's just second nature, and they're there as part of a community, and I think building those communities at the moment is really, really important.
Yeah, we get the same feedback from when people bring parents along, or people come along who are a bit older. We get the same feedback every time, which is essentially, if they have been parents themselves, we really wish this kind of thing existed when we were parents, you know. So that's quite exciting.
Claire, what do you are you worried that not being able to get to places at the moment is going to, you know, sort of cause more problems than perhaps we're going to be aware of until kind of after lockdown, or am I sort of overthinking it?
I haven't really encountered much problems in terms of, for me or my patients, in that sort of way. We've got a group of patients that are at risk community, so we're regularly checking up on them. And actually, I think we've reacted quite quickly in response to what's happening. So everybody that's at risk has already been put on a list. They've been contacted by us, and if you know, usually they've already been contacted by like another frontline teams that are being sort of redeployed. So quite a lot of the fire department are doing things, certainly locally in Bedfordshire, where I practice my NHS stuff. They're getting phone calls from firemen, which quite a lot of the old dears are enjoying, and they're coming around with the Boris bags and things. So and pharmacies have stepped right up in terms of if patients are unable to get there, they've increased their deliveries, and certainly I've had no bad experience really in terms of people being able to get where they need to be.
Amazing. And what's the what are you doing at the moment, Claire, to keep yourself sane during lockdown? It's a weird question to ask somebody who's basically keeping it all together for us at the moment, but you know, what's your Claire tips for?
My Claire tips.
Sane?
So well, I try to make sure that at work I do take some time for a lunch break. I don't really get lunch, but I'm trying to make sure that while I'm actually eating at my desk, I'm not doing stuff, even if it's just logging on and reading just silly newspapers, something completely different. You know, why is Kim Kardashian wearing that bikini twice? Important stuff. But when I get home, I'm actually trying to do a ballet class every day.
Oh, wow.
So I used to dance. So I'm trying to, in these times, I'm not going out and seeing my friends when I come home from work.
Yeah.
And certainly if the other half is still doing what he has to do on the computer, I'm trying to make sure that I've got that time to myself, even if it's just half an hour. I'll try and do an hour and try and do a bit of a ballet class, and just because you get all this energy from where it's so intense at work at the moment, and your head comes back and you're literally buzzing. I'm someone that I do leave it at work, but I end up with all this pent up energy. Something physical for me is certainly what I need.
That's an interesting idea, isn't it? That because we've all got, effectively a bit more time on our hands, not all of us, but, you know, quite a lot, that people are starting to do different things. Our whole street's gone mad for this Joe Wicks thing. I mean,
me too.
he's cruising towards his knighthood. He's like the nation's PE teacher. and I just think fair play. And you've got, kids. And I did it twice, and it hurt. It hurt.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard, but it's kind of nice. And I think people are starting to, maybe learn a new craft or do a new thing, or do something they wouldn't normally do. So I quite like that. And you did ballet before? You just thought, I'm going to do lockdown ballet.
Yeah. At one point, it was my job many, many years ago. But yeah, it's something that I need it in my life still in some way, even though I'm in medicine.
Nice. What about you, Ian and Ruth? What are you doing? How you aside from work and being parents and things like that, what are you doing to keep sane?
I make music mainly. That's my thing.
Very good.
We've got a whole bunch of instruments here that we play. Ruth plays as well. I'm a songwriter, and I teach guitar as well. So I make music. Kind of there's a guitar in every room, always one very close to hand. So that's my way of channeling all sorts of emotions and energy. It's an incredible outlet.
That's amazing.
Just do a bit of shredding.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that. I feel like I'm one of those people that's got a story for everything. But my 10-year-old son, he has guitar lessons, and his teacher Ed has just gone to screen now, so he's still doing it. But what's that really kind of inspired Charlie, to carry on playing the guitar after the session had finished, because he's basically flipping from Zoom to YouTube, watching, Dave Grohl jamming or whoever it is on their guitar, and then kind of emulating those people. So in it, maybe there is something in this kind of screen-based, activity-based inspiration that's having a really interesting effect on people. Like they're feeling more inspired, maybe, to do more of what they were doing before. Maybe we've just got more time.
But I think it's really great as well when you've got a toddler or a child of any age around the house, so those things that we're doing are kind of visible. Like we live in a flat, you can't get away from them, so like Joe Wicks happens, and even though Julian's too little to really join in, like he now knows how to say lunges, and he'll watch Ian doing it. And it's the same with the guitar, like it's kind of like the whole ethos of Babble Talks. It doesn't have to be that you're like, okay, let's do a baby activity. Like Ian will just play the guitar and Julian will hear that, and whilst that's not something that we're doing that's specifically for him, like the benefits of that for him as well as for Ian are so good, and he gets to see how much that kind of is a sort of a therapeutic and a kind of a really expressive thing for Ian, and then is kind of able to take something from that himself. So
yeah, Julian's repertoire is insane for a 2.5-year-old. He knows a lot of the classics, because I play the odd wedding here and there and stuff like that. So I'm always singing cover songs, and he's picked up so many of them. It's brilliant.
That's amazing.
What a legend.
Yeah. Talent next year. Do it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Has he got a little guitar? Have you got him a little one yet?
He's got a ukulele. He's actually this is his guitar right here. He's got a full-size classical guitar that he plays. Wow. So yeah. There you go. Another guitar.
Go on, get him out.
The thing that's cool about that guitar, which if people have guitars around the house, they should definitely do, is if you can put it in a particular tuning, which means that if you just strum it, it sounds nice. It's not like a typical guitar tuning. It's called open tuning, and it means that you can just strum it without any fingers on, and it makes a good sound.
Sounds a bit like this. So it actually sounds like a chord, There
you go. We've had a music lesson tonight as well. Right, I am looking at the clock. We are taking up people's evenings. I've got a couple more questions, and then we'll call it a night. What's I guess one of the things. So obviously, kind of, I joke around quite a lot. We super duper busy with Vala. It's been like insane, and I'm immensely proud of the company for what they've achieved. But we get bombarded quite a lot with just so many opinions about the impact of coronavirus and on the future. So like what this moment in time means for this new normal. Some people are saying that things are never going to go back to normal, that things are kind of like the effects of this kind of stuff. I have a slightly more optimistic view, which is I think things, are not going to be the same again, but they're probably going to be better because I think people are going to get closer together and things like that. I am really, really interested in all of your opinions on, what life might look like after the world gets past this kind of pandemic. It's a bit of a heavy one to end on, sorry, but it's kind of an important one. I'm going to start with Claire, actually. Claire, what do you think, either professionally, kind of emotionally, psychologically, whatever, what's the world going to look like after COVID?
Well, I'm only thinking of the good stuff here. I think where we've been forced to take time for ourselves because, people being more creative, we have really got more time. Even once I'm back from work, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what to do. We have, we've had this time, we've been forced to look at ourselves and actually go, actually it would make me happy to paint spare room now. It's making me happy to make sure I do that yoga. So I think I'm hoping that people where they've had to keep themselves sane and take up something creative are going to continue to do this. I'm hoping that healthcare will continue to be more digitalized. And actually where the NHS was going to be so overwhelmed with all of the calls about corona, and they've just been all this drumming it in, you can go to the gov.uk, that's where all the information is, even the self-certs for COVID, it's all on there. I think people are feeling more confident with taking control and having that self-empowerment over their own health rather than going straight to the GP for things that they can, safely in the right, obviously government supported information, achieve that themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this will all be a more smooth aspect of medicine. We've been forced to look at the mental health of everybody, which was quite a big thing before. So I'm hoping that will all be a positive outcome, and people realizing that things like Vala is so accessible, and you can do so much over the phone on the video as you can presenting to your GP, which works marvelously well for busy parents, busy workers, savvy kids with their technology and their big phones that I don't understand.
Well, I think that's really, I think that's a really nice point as well, which is we've changed the way that people think about how they did things before, and that I think is a really fascinating output from all of this, which is actually it wasn't that expensive, or it was pretty easy, or it was pretty straightforward, or it was pretty quick, or I didn't have to do it this way, I didn't have to do it that way. So forcing people to take control, we call it asymmetric paternalism, if you want the kind of the funny term. This kind of asymmetric paternalistic way of forcing people to do stuff, putting the salad before the chips at the canteen is basically the analogy. Does make a positive change, and it's the biggest nudge the world has ever had, I think, to think differently about all this kind of stuff. And
absolutely,
it's amazing. What about you guys? What does the world post COVID look like?
Go on, Ruth.
Well, I think that it has the potential to create really positive and strong family bonds. I think that where it's undeniably stressful for people to have to juggle work and family, we're in a situation where we're spending so many more hours together that we wouldn't have been otherwise. And I think that in terms of how well you know each other and how much you are able to see every single day of your children kind of growing up and going through stuff, I think that has the potential to be really positive, as long as we're all kind to ourselves and don't kind of set the bar too high in what we're trying to achieve for them. I think that emotional kind of support and just being there for each other can be a really positive thing.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think people feeling more empowered and connected. Two things that I'm seeing from friends and family, family members that would have completely shied away from any kind of technology before are fully connected now in just a matter of weeks. I love this side of what's happening, that people are, becoming more sort of tech savvy and essentially having more conversations with their families and friends. And I think that kind of thing, I really hope will just continue, because those bonds, once strengthened, there's no real reason why they would become less. I mean, I don't think that life will return exactly back to how it was before. I think a lot of this will stay with us for the good.
I mean, you're a wise man. I don't have to say anything else. That's like the perfect note to finish on. Listen, I just want to say like a massive thank you for your time. To Ian's point, like the world is having some really good conversations at the moment, positive conversations, and that's why we wanted to do this. We've got 7 weeks now, another 7 weeks of people equally as amazing and brilliant, humans as fascinating as you three. And I'm really excited to get all these different perspectives on what's going on in the world at the moment. So listen, thanks very much. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now. Be safe. I will see you all very soon. And thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye. I'm going to end.